Hey guys, it's Troy here, and today this video is going to be a little bit different. We are going to be making a tier list, which is something we've never done before. I've been playing Mario Kart Wii for 10 years now, and one thing I've always wanted to make a video on is the vehicles in this game. They've become increasingly interesting to me over time, and I think that stems from playing the new Mario Kart games. It's the last game in the series where Nintendo went really out of control with the stats. In Mario Kart 7 and onwards, they balanced the vehicles pretty evenly for the most part, so even the worst combinations didn't feel too out of place on the racetrack. Mario Kart Wii, on the other hand, is an entirely different story. Similarly to Mario Kart DS, there's a clear hierarchy of vehicles in this game, which makes it the perfect game to create a tier list for. So today I'm going to share my opinions on how I would rank the vehicles in this game for online play on the 32 Nintendo courses. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term, a tier list is a system people use to rank things from best to worst, and language you'll often see used with the term in video game culture is people calling things S tier, A tier, B tier, and so on. It's a simple way to categorize stuff, so we're going to be going back to this chart quite a bit. I created this one based off of a Super Smash Bros. One I used to look at all the time on Reddit. Character tier lists are really popular in the Smash community and often result in a lot of discussions and debates. I'm hoping this video gets people talking about Mario Kart Wii vehicles as well. It's always interesting to hear people's opinions based on their experiences. Okay, so starting things off, every vehicle has 7 statistical categories, but it's important to note these categories are not equally important. If I had to make a tier list on the 7 categories, it'd be something like this. Speed is the most important, without a doubt, followed by drift and then weight. There's a steep drop-off of importance after those 3, but 4th would be mini turbo, 5th acceleration, 6th off-road, and dead last, handling. Handling doesn't matter much because in this game, almost every time you're turning, you're also drifting, especially with inside drifting bikes. So the game cares about the drift stat and not the handling stat. Character stats only slightly affect how your vehicle performs, meaning all characters are viable online, but Funky Kong and Daisy are the most used characters entirely because they have the highest speed stat bonuses respectively for their weight classes, and as we said earlier, speed is the most important. I'll go into detail with the rest of the stats as the video progresses, but for now let's jump into my vehicle tier list. S tier. Why tier lists start with S? I'm not entirely sure, but that's just the way they've been done for years from what I've seen. It pretty much means best of the best, and in this game I'm going to be putting Flame Runner in S tier and as my #1 ranked vehicle overall. Big surprise. There's a reason why when you join a good lobby, it's not uncommon to see 10 Funky Kongs all sporting the singular vehicle. You look at its stats and it's not maxed out anywhere, not even close to it really, but it feels like it is. I remember using Darth Maul in Star Wars Racer's Revenge on the PS2 when I was younger, and his vehicle felt similar to the Flame Runner in dominance, and that actually had max stats. Looking at the Flame Runner, it has 4 categories where it really thrives: speed, weight, drift, and mini turbo. And backtracking to what we talked about earlier, the 4 most important stats in the game are exactly those 4. We already know drift is another word for handling in this game, but acceleration's gotta be important, right? Wrong, not in this game. If you get hit, you charge one of these bad boys up, a standstill mini turbo, and you're back to full speed pretty much instantly. Acceleration only matters in instances where you lose half your speed, from getting bumped in your wheelie or something like hitting a banana peel, struck by lightning, something along those lines. And last, off-road. Well, as long as you stay on the road, you won't have to worry about off-road. You really only go off-road in this game when you're boosting with a mushroom or star. Now, despite dominating at the 4 major stat categories, there is one hidden stat category in which the Flame Runner would be completely irrelevant if it did not have this feature, and that feature is inside drift. Only 9 of the 36 vehicles in this game have it, and it is completely broken. I can spend a whole video talking about the differences of the drift styles, but long story short, inside drift gives your vehicle better mobility than outside drift. Okay, since now you guys understand the core mechanics a little bit better, we're going to speed things up. The second vehicle I have placed in S tier is the Mach Bike. It's got the Flame Runner beat in 5 of the 7 categories, but it's losing in speed and weight, so it gets bumped off on tracks like Rainbow Road. However, it definitely makes a case for being #1 because it really thrives on the curvy tracks like DK Mountain due to its drift stat. And its compact hitbox makes pulling off some of the most difficult shortcuts in the game quite a bit easier. You generally see a couple people on Daisy Mach Bike in competitive worldwides or tournament races. Although, just because Daisy is slightly better than the rest of the medium weights, you can still get away with using the others. They all have their respective unique stat bonuses. Now we're moving on to A tier, meaning this next vehicle is a step below the last 2. The third best vehicle for online is the Bullet Bike. This thing has even more mini turbo and drift than the Mach Bike and close to the same speed. However, its Achilles heel is its lightweight. Not only does it get shoved off the track easily, but unfortunately in Mario Kart Wii, vehicles with lighter weight also go higher off of ramps, and in this game you travel faster on the ground than you do in the air. So it has a hard time maintaining a lead on stunt heavy courses like Waluigi Stadium. This vehicle is pretty common in worldwide races online, but unfortunately you won't see too much of it in a tournament or clan war setting simply because of its weight stat being too low. Similar to Funky Kong and Daisy, Baby Daisy is the most common character on lightweight vehicles like the Bullet Bike due to her high speed and mini turbo stat. But when I use lightweights, I personally like to use Dry Bones because he's my favorite. We now drop down another tier where we have 3 comparable vehicles. These 3 vehicles have very imbalanced stats, but they're all inside drift bikes, and if there's one trend you've probably noticed so far watching this video, it's that inside drift bikes are the best vehicles in this game by far. In fourth, we have the Sneakster. Impressively, it has slightly more speed than even the Flame Runner, but its drift stat is mediocre, which equates to it struggling on 1 or 2 turns in about half of the 32 Nintendo tracks. It has a very low mini turbo stat too, so these factors when combined make it not better than the Flame Runner on really any of the 32 tracks, but it's close on the spear oriented ones with very few turns. It does have a decent acceleration stat, which is worth mentioning because it's higher than the Flame Runner and Mach Bikes. Overall, this thing can compete with the top tiers, but its mediocre drift stat holds it back. Also in the B tier, we have the Dolphin Dasher. Back in 2008, if you would have asked me what the best vehicle in the game is, I would have said this without any hesitation. It's the perfect training wheels to anyone trying to learn inside drift. Its actual drift stat value is pretty weak, but when learning inside drift, it helps to have a low drift stat so you don't drive into the walls too easily. So besides training wheels, what does this vehicle have to offer? Well, it has 3 times as much off-road in comparison to the 2 S tier vehicles, so on Sherbetland and Shy Guy Beach, it has the advantage. It also has a decent weight stat, and all around no glaring weaknesses. It's simply just not fast enough on most courses compared to the 4 vehicles I placed ahead of it. Now on to the fan favorite Magic Cruiser. This is the extreme version of the Dolphin Dasher. It has even more off-road than the Dolphin Dasher, so it dominates Sherbetland and Shy Guy Beach, and you can do a lot of off-road shortcuts strimless on other tracks without losing really any time. However, I have it below the Dolphin Dasher despite more off-road because it's worse on the other 30 tracks. This is because of slightly less speed, but also more importantly, this vehicle is as light as a feather, and any bumpage from heavier vehicles sends this thing flying off into the abyss. It's an extremely fun vehicle to use, and on off-road oriented tracks, it definitely competes. Next up, C tier, where we have 1 vehicle to showcase. This vehicle is a step below B tier, but I believe it's a solid notch above everything placed in D. It is the most fascinating vehicle in the entire game because it has just as many time trial world records as the Mach Bike, like 10 world records. But despite this, online I have it ranked below 6 other vehicles, and yes, we're talking about the Spear. While the Spear is in a wheelie, there is nothing in this game that is faster than it. On tracks with few turns, this thing breaks away. It also has slightly more weight than even the Flame Runner, but similar to the Sneakster, it has a glaring weakness and it happens to be the same one. The Spear's drift is just abysmal, but this vehicle is 1 stat away from being arguably the best vehicle in the game. And it's worth mentioning online, this thing can put up a fight with top tiers, just like the B tier vehicles, but you need a lot more skill to control it, and on some tracks like DK Jungle Parkway, you'll feel a bit hopeless. Okay, we are on the D tier now, and we're about to see a shift in vehicle diversity at last. At number 8, we have the Wild Wing. Although it's close, I have the Wild Wing as the best kart for online play, and to me, it's fascinating how similar its stats are to the Flame Runner. It has high values on the 4 categories which matter most, and straight up, if this thing was an inside drift bike, it would be S tier. But because karts don't have wheelies or inside drift, they can't take as many shortcuts, dodge items as easily, or take as tight of lines. They also have bulky hitboxes, which is almost never a good thing in Mario Kart. The only positives karts have in this game are an orange mini turbo, and the fact that, well, you're never going to get wheelie bumped. You're going to be the one doing the bumping. The Mini Beast is right behind it for me, and arguably better than the Wild Wing. This is probably my favorite name of any vehicle. The Mini Beast. Slightly less speed, but slightly more drift and mini turbo. The reason I have it lower is because its weight is significantly worse than the Wild Wing, and I think that's the main advantage karts have. If they get in front, they can be tricky to pass up because they're always sliding left and right, and their weight can do some serious damage. Alright, and to round off the D tiers, here is the Jet Bubble, our 8th inside drifting bike on this list and 10th overall. The phrase jack of all trades, master of none is the perfect analogy for this vehicle. It's so brutally average, it's comical, but hey, it has inside drift, so it should be at least C tier, right? Well, yeah, it's actually only average on 6 of the 7 categories. Its weight stat is still abysmal, which is why we have it ranked so far down the list. Nintendo really screwed up the weight stat in this game, making vehicles go higher off of ramps, and the collision is just brutal when playing online. I'm glad they fixed it in the newer games, made it less punishing. Alright guys, if you're still here, we are scrapping the bottom of the barrel now as we move on to E tier. But Troy, there's 36 vehicles in the game and you've only listed 10. What's going on? Well, this game might be the most fun game I've ever played, but that doesn't mean it's balanced. I have 2/3 of the vehicles in the game in the F tier category, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So starting off E tier, we have the Honey Coupe. I love the look of this thing. It reminds me of the Gold Kart when paired with Rosalina. It also has an extremely small hitbox for a kart, which is super helpful. I believe this is also arguable as the best kart because it has an extreme weight stat and it has a small hitbox. And it does have slightly less speed than the Wild Wing and Mini Beast, but I'm just not great at using this thing personally. I'm interested to hear what kart mains think of this vehicle, so leave a comment and let me know what you guys think. The Flameflyer is up next, and the last kart that's worth mentioning. It has a decent drift stat, awesome speed, weight, and mini turbo, but it has the largest hitbox, and handling actually does matter for karts, and this thing can't turn to save its life. It's great for time trials, but it struggles online. If you get ahead and you know what you're doing, it's not all that bad. I think it's the 4th best kart in the game, but I'd have trouble putting it any higher. Rounding out E tier, we have the final inside drifting bike, the legendary meme vehicle, the one and only Quacker. This thing has more stat points than any other vehicle in the game. I'm not even kidding. It has beastly acceleration, handling, drift, and mini turbo. Also, the off-road is not too shabby. Someone who's playing this game for the first time may see this thing and think to himself, wow, this thing is the cat's pajamas. It is absolutely broken, but wait, it's slow as molasses and as delicate as the babies who drive it. It has the lowest weight stat in the game. If this thing gets in front, it can't hold a lead. And when you're in the middle of the pack, you're getting bumped off on every turn. It does alright on tracks with walls and a fair amount of off-road, and it's extremely easy to use, so I believe it is worthy of E tier and just barely viable. You can steal the occasional first place with this 2-wheeled meme machine. And last but not least, F tier. In this tier resides the Forgotten 23. I'll be quite honest, I probably can't even name them all, which is pretty sad. You just never see them on the racetrack, and if you do, it's because people are memeing or trying to challenge themselves. I think it's fun to have really bad vehicles in the game, but 23 out of 36 is a bit much. However, I do want to give an honorable mention to both the Shooting Star and the Bit Bike. If you guys saw my If All Vehicles Had Inside Drift video a few weeks ago, you probably noticed how good this thing was with Inside Drift, easily an A tier vehicle. Unfortunately, it was given outside drift, making it awkward and clunky despite it having good stats. The Bit Bike is also comparable to the Quacker and very forgiving, but overall, outside drifting bikes are some of Nintendo's worst ideas, and I don't think I'd still be playing this game if it was the only vehicle option. Thankfully, inside drift is incredible, and combined with wheelies makes Mario Kart Wii feel so unique to every other game in the series in the best kind of way. In fact, inside drift was so great that we may never see it again, and that awkward hybrid drift we got in Mario Kart 8 doesn't count, so don't even start. Alright guys, that brings us to the end of my Mario Kart Wii tier list video. Thank you so much for watching. This took me a while to make, so I'd appreciate it if you liked the video, if you enjoyed, and comment on your thoughts. I'm curious to see your guys' opinions. This is noticeably different than my average video with post commentary, but I do have a lot of other videos planned in this sort of format, so let me know if you enjoyed and would like to see more videos of this nature. Okay, that's all I got. I'm going to post the tier list template on Twitter, so check out my Twitter, TroyWD98, and if you like what you see, subscribe for more Mario Kart videos. As always, thank you for watching, enjoy Funky Kong dancing, and peace.